Hello, and welcome to Launching a Personalized Learning Program. My name is Dr. Sarah Moran, and I am the principal of Holman Middle School in St. Anne, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis. We are excited today to be able to share with you our journey through personalized learning. Today, here to share with you, besides myself, are Mrs. Megan Bowersox and Dr. Emily Defani. I'm going to let them share a little bit about themselves now.
Hi, I'm Megan Bowersox. I teach English Language Arts, Social Studies, and Reading Intervention in Pirate Academy at Holman. We are in our second year of launching, which you will learn about in this presentation, and I'm excited to be here with you today.
Hi, I'm Emily Defani, and I teach math and science in Pirate Academy along with Megan, and we're just excited to share.
All right. Before we get started launching into what we have to talk about, I'd like to share with you now a video of our history. Before we jump into the nuts and bolts of our process, I'd like to first provide a picture of our building. Holman Middle School is, as mentioned, a suburban middle school home to roughly 600 students. It's an incredibly diverse school. Roughly 45% of students are African American, 40% are white, 10% are Hispanic, and the remaining 5% are Asian, Native American, or multiracial. Among the students, there is a variety of languages, religions, and cultures represented. While the state average for individualized education plans is 13.6%, Holman's IEP population is 18.2%. We also have a free reduced lunch population above 50%, although an exact number is difficult to pinpoint since the government is currently funding all school meals. Comparatively, our students' performance on state tests is higher than districts with similar demographics, though at the time was lower than other high-achieving districts with less diversity. The time was right, and we knew we needed to make changes. The actual inception of Pirate Academy began several years ago when Pattonville district leaders and teachers started discussing the need for change. We recognized that the legacy model of schooling, or the factory model, if you will, was not and could not meet the needs of our diverse population of learners. We also knew that industries and universities across the nation were making it clear that high school graduates were not prepared to take on the structures nor the challenges necessitated in their fields. That is when we started to lay the foundation for personalized learning in our district. During 2017 and 2018, the Holman administrative staff and a group of teachers researched best practices and attended the Design Challenge professional developments co-sponsored by Pattonville and Parkway school districts. During this time, the team learned about personalized learning, competency-based learning, and a host of other related topics. Additionally, the team was able to discuss future plans for Holman based on the learning. Moving forward with what we learned, during the 2018-19 and 2019-20 school years, we piloted personalized and competency-based learning in several English language arts and math classrooms. While students benefited from the systems, the adults learned valuable lessons. Most importantly, that these methods used in individual classrooms while surrounded by legacy learning did not provide the student and parent buy-in that was necessary to be effective. Because of that, we decided to create a school within a school, an academy in which all core subjects would be taught using personalized and competency-based learning. To see what this could look like and to have some of our many questions answered, we traveled to Wisconsin and worked with the Institute for Personalized Learning, visiting sites around the area to see a variety of implementations. When we returned home, we were enthusiastic about the future and set about finding the right teachers to spearhead the journey. Once Mrs. Bowersox and Dr. Defani were identified, the real work began. During the fall of 2019, we again visited Wisconsin, this time focusing on creating a mission statement to guide our work and planning for how content delivery would look like in this different model. Simultaneous to this work, which was primarily done by the teachers, I concentrated on system components, including the marketing of the academy and the application process. Upon the arrival of 2020, though, as we all know, things came to a grinding halt due to the pandemic and an overwhelming uncertainty of what the future held. However, the teachers were unwavering in their desire to launch Pirate Academy. As such, the decision was made that we would continue to launch in fall of 2020, regardless of the learning environment in which we found ourselves. Upon the start of the school year, we welcomed our inaugural class of 6th grade students. While the initial class sessions were held virtually, by October, our district conducted a hybrid schedule, and students in Pirate Academy were in blocked classes every other day and learning virtually on their days at home. Later in the presentation, Mrs. Bowersox and Dr. Defani will talk about what Pirate Academy looks like instructionally. While we maneuvered our way through COVID in a brand new program, we celebrated the successes, learned from the challenges, and made plans for the next school year, hoping that all things COVID would be over. And although that wasn't to be, we did expand, moving our 6th graders into 7th grade and taking on a whole new cohort of 6th grade students. Currently, our students have 2 core blocks a day, one that integrates science and math, and one that blends ELA and social studies. All 4 contents have their individual competencies, and the teachers focus on key instructional practices, such as including student voice and choice, goal setting, flexible pacing, real-time feedback, small group instruction, assessment for learning and reassessment as needed, and focusing on learning, practicing, and developing 21st century skills. Looking ahead, we plan to expand again during the 2022-23 school year, adding 2 teachers to the team and approximately 50 more students, primarily 6th graders, but also allowing for other 7th and 8th grade students to join. We are currently piloting learner profiles, and next year, each student will formalize their unique learning path. We will also be moving from Canvas to Empower to house our content and competencies. While I haven't provided you every detail during this short overview, I encourage you to explore more deeply through the Prezi and ask any questions you may have using the QR code that leads to a Padlet for sharing information. Now, to explain more about the structure and content of Pirate Academy, I'll turn it over to my colleagues, Mrs. Megan Bowersox and Dr. Emily Defani.
Ladies?
So first, when we first looked at starting Pirate Academy, one of the things that Megan and I were very intentional about is we wanted a setup that was going to allow us the flexibility to do what we needed for our students. And that meant that we were pretty firm on wanting a block schedule. We wanted the back-to-back classes just so we had the flexibility to be able to kind of flex with our students. If we needed more time for math, then that day maybe we spent more time on math. If there was a science lab, then maybe we did a full day of science. And the same in ELA, social studies, where if we wanted that extra time, we had it so we could extend activities or projects to meet the needs of our students and provide them that extra space for learning. Within that model, we then looked at specific personalized learning pedagogy just to decide what we specifically wanted to do. So in math, that means we are using Math Workshop. So students in a competency-based program, just like in standards-based, have the opportunity to reassess on any competency or learning target. And part of that and giving them that time in class to practice and review and reassess was I provide Math Workshop about once every 6 weeks or so. That allows students who didn't catch something the first time through to be able to go back and learn whatever they missed. And really, we see a lot of our struggling students, especially, they really value that time because it gives them this extra space where it's okay for them not to know it the first time through. And it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to ask for help because they know they can always come back to us later and fix it. And they have that opportunity to practice it all year and hopefully by the end of the year be solid on all their competencies. Outside of that, Within Pirate Academy, students also have a little bit more flexibility in math than they do in a normal classroom, a normal math classroom. We have flexible pacing, and I really was very intentional about including that because you have some students who, yes, they like to be told what to do every day, but then we have some students who are somewhere in between wanting to be told what to do every day and a full challenge pace course. And having that flexibility where I open full units at a time just so that they can work through at their own pace. They can master at their own pace. And if my sixth graders get into seventh grade content this year, awesome for them. That flexibility has really improved the confidence of a lot of our students in math, especially students who at the start of the year were very unsure of themselves and were asking me, is this okay? Is this right? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Now we're taking ownership of their learning. And part of that is we've allowed them to choose their own pacing. They can work ahead because they know something at the end of the chapter is going to be hard for them just by previewing the chapter. In science, we're really working on making all science learning as much as possible lab-based. Obviously, there is a space for notes and there's a space for getting that surface level content, but really we're trying to do as much as possible through labs, stations, collaborative work, research or experiments, or some kind of hands-on project. We don't want to be telling them science. We want them to be doing science. And that was a big focus as we were starting this Pirate Academy journey. So all of our students are working on student-driven assessments. We're creating student-driven learning paths where they can kind of work through similar to math at their own pace. And that I think has really revolutionized just math and science both. They're just students have more autonomy than what you see in a normal classroom. And that has been, for a lot of our students, I think a little bit empowering. It's something that they haven't gotten in their entire education career for some of them.
Emily, very well said. So I'm going to kind of follow the same model that she did, where I talk about kind of holistically our approach and why it's different from a legacy or traditional classroom, but then also how that plays out in an ELA and social studies classroom. So like Dr. Defani, Emily said, we really focus on the whole child. One thing that, I've taught middle school for, this is my 10th year, and most of it was 8th grade. And at that point, you kind of forget that they're still little kids, but really, we're dealing with children who are growing from concrete to abstract thinking. They're still trying to figure out who they are. And I think that especially in a middle school, well, any school really, any institution that's dealing with children needs to honor children as unique individuals and not treat them as like this industrial model that Dr. Moran mentioned in the video earlier. Our whole philosophy is that we are trying to figure out who these learners are, not so that education can be something that we do to them, but really education becomes something that we partner with the students in. So we know the students so that we can help them know themselves better and then become true agents of their learning in our program. And so with that self-knowledge, we actually make the curriculum completely accessible to them. As Dr. Defani said, like the students are aware of the learning targets. They're aware of the learning progressions. They self-rate to let us know where they're at in the learning process and what kind of a support that they might need to be able to move to the next step. In our program, we've been able to really kind of narrow down the instructional components to the core essentials so that we're not trying to get through students a bunch of kind of arbitrary fluff just for the sake of filling time. The students are really focused on what essential learning outcomes matter so that we can also build in time for those essential skills that will help them be successful, not just now, but later. And so learning is entirely visible. Well, I would say not entirely 100% visible, like we're working on it. Some students it's visible, but some of them just can't see it yet. So we're working on that. I'm not going to lie and say it's perfect, but we're helping the students see that learning is a process. They have a role, the main role in that, and what we are doing to coach them along with that. So as far as ELA and social studies go, I teach it interdisciplinary in that during the block that I have students, there's no delineation between English language arts and social studies. And so like Ms. Stefani, Emily, I put out the assignments for the week. I don't do a whole unit, but I'll do a week and I'll kind of go through, I do instructional videos in the assignments. So it's more of like that flipped model. And students can access any of the assignments for the week in whatever order they want. So at the beginning of the week, we do a whole class meeting where we're, on the floor, crisscross applesauce. It's real fun. And they kind of ask like, okay, what's the hardest? What's the time constraints? What's the longest? And then they make a plan for how they're going to achieve the assignments for the week, knowing which are summative assessments, which are formative, what is a logical progression for that, and also knowing their capacity for the day. If they're not feeling like doing the hardest one, and they just want to get one quick and easy out of the way, they do that. But then I have other kids who surprise me and they'll put the hardest one first. And I'm always kind of impressed by that. And so what I do during instruction is I walk around, I check in with the kids. I'm giving immediate feedback. They don't turn in anything without checking with me or another teacher in the room, just to make sure that they're on track, that they've mastered that learning target as needed. It's very rare that a student's ready to turn it in right away. That's constant feedback, constant improvement, and always aiming for that next level of growth. And so really focusing on the standards in social studies and our language arts learning targets keep us accountable to that learning, but also the interdisciplinary component also comes into the fact that I don't have to create a whole bunch of new content for my ELA class. It's really the social studies content that I'm using, and it helps students see ELA not as this siloed subject that they're like, what am I even doing here? But really, I tell kids, this is the vehicle for doing anything else that you want to do in life. You have to be able to read critically. You have to be able to do something with the text, and you have to be able to communicate about that. So the skills that they're learning in my class are immediately transferred from ELA to social studies. And then we're also seeing that transfer in science, which has been really great to see.
Wonderful. Again, as we enter into this phase of next normal, we are trying to find a way to best serve our students at Holman Middle School. And we hope that what we've shared with you today is a couple things. One, this process is messy, it's long. We tell our students, and we live by it ourselves, we fail forward. We make mistakes, and we learn from those mistakes, and we change from those mistakes, and we do better when we know better. I think Megan said it best when she talked about the constant feedback and the constant process of growth that we're all going through. It's the students, but it's also our program. The teachers do have that autonomy to make those changes in the moment. And I think that's one of the most important things that as administrators that we can remember, is that these are the professionals that we put in charge. My two professionals are rock stars, and I tell them that all the time. And they need to be able to make those decisions. Let's go ahead. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep doing what's best for our students. If you have any questions, we're always here to help you. You can go through the Padlet, or we'll have our emails available as well. Thank you for joining us today.